Morning. Welcome everyone for joining us today for this installment of GPEC's Regional Report Series. I am Ashley Busada, Vice President of Business Development at the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. Thank you for tuning in. I'm looking forward to leading this discussion on the mining industry in Arizona, which has been a cornerstone of a state's economy since the 19th century. We will discuss how we plan to meet the growing demand for minerals and our position in the global market, the evolving regulatory landscape, and the opportunities for innovation growth. Joining me today are top leaders from Freeport-McMoRan, Taseko Mine, Global External, and the Arizona Mining Association. So before we begin, just a few housekeeping things to note. The webinar will run for approximately 1 hour, and we will be recording this discussion and sharing on our social media channels. You can submit your question using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen, and we will answer as many as we can, time allowing. So let's dive in to our first speaker, and it'll be a presentation of the mining industry by Steve Trussell, the Executive Director of the Arizona Mining Association and Arizona Rock Products.
Well, good morning, everyone. In order to talk about the future of mining, I think it's important to focus on where we've come from as a precursor to that discussion. So to jump right in, mining is a cornerstone of Arizona's heritage and development and has played a critical role in shaping the state's economic, social, and cultural landscape. The discovery of rich mineral deposits, particularly copper, silver, and gold, resulted in significant population growth and infrastructure development that we'll see and hear about, and as related to the mines, helping to transform Arizona into from a sparsely populated territory into a booming economy that we have all know and love today. So if we can move to the next slide. Here you see copper minerals and their properties that make copper very important to Arizona. And also a historic picture of miners posing by a 3-ton ore sample from Bisbee, Arizona in the early 1890s. This one was going to a World Expo. And if you saw that picture in color, you'd see these beautiful blues and greens, turquoise colors that would be adorning that particular piece. Arizona is endowed with an abundance of mineral resources, particularly copper, and we are the largest producer of copper in the United States. The state also produces or has the potential to provide other important minerals such as gold, silver, molybdenum, zinc, rare earth elements, lithium, uranium, potash, and more. The vast deposits of these minerals have made Arizona a key player in the mining sector for decades. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is the geologic survey map of the surface of Arizona, and it was created by Dr. Stephen Reynolds of Arizona State University. It gives you some indicators of where some of these deposits might be. The geologic landscape of Arizona is highly diverse. It has a complex history with tectonic and volcanic activity that has created rich mineral deposits throughout. The state's geology includes numerous ore bodies that are accessible and economically viable to mine. This geologic diversity has attracted significant investment and exploration activities for the past 170 plus years. Next slide. Arizona is a mining powerhouse, and the state's mining legacy is deeply embedded in its culture and economy, providing a foundation for ongoing mining activity. The earliest miners were Native Americans who harvested outcrops of salt, clays, hematite, quartz, obsidian, stone, turquoise, coal, and various minerals used for pigments. Here you see an artist's depiction of Coronado entering the Pimeria Alta region of southern Arizona. In the 1540s, Spanish explorers Deniza, Coronado, and Juan Uñate began the hunt for gold and silver while searching for the fabled 7 cities of Cibola. Next slide. The first major copper mine in Arizona was the New Cornelia mine. In 1854, the Arizona Mining and Trading Company launched a modern era of hard rock mining in Ajo, Arizona. Next slide. Here you see placer miners near Prescott. A promising mining industry fostered growth in Arizona territory, and according to the Arizona Geologic Survey, by around 1864, nearly 25% of the male non-native populace was made up of prospectors and miners. Next slide. By the 1870s, an uptick of hard rock mining yielded impressive volumes of copper, lead, zinc, silver, and gold ore. And in 1912, the new state of Arizona supported 445 active mines, 72 concentrating facilities, and 11 smelters. Their gross value in that year was nearly $67 million, the equivalent to $1.4 billion in the early 2000s. This photo shows silver ore wagons at the Silver King mine up near what is now Superior, Arizona. This would be one of the leading silver producers in the late 1870s. Next slide. At the start of the 21st century, the important metallic commodities of Arizona were in order were copper, gold, silver, molybdenum, and lead. Important non-metallic or industrial minerals included sand and gravel, crushed stone, clay, cement, gypsum, lime, perlite, pumice, and salt. Arizona is also world famous for its turquoise, peridot, petrified wood, and for striking copper-bearing minerals such as chrysocolla, azurite, and malachite. That said, copper is king, as evidenced by this slide. You see the flag of Arizona with its copper star, the dome on the Capitol that's also copper, and our miner on the state seal, which happens to be fashioned after George Warren, who was noted for owning the claim to the Copper Queen mine in Bisbee that he later lost in a bad bet. Next slide. Copper is often referred to as Arizona's red gold and as the state's most valuable mineral, with Arizona leading the nation in copper production. To quantify that, Arizona's copper mines produce 74% of the nation's copper. Here you see finished copper cathode being harvested. Next slide. Towns like Bisbee, Jerome, Baghdad, Ray, Miami, and Globe sprang up around mining sites, attracting a diverse workforce and fostering the development of railroads, which further stimulated economic growth. Here you see Bisbee in 1915, which Jerome and Bisbee at this time were in their heyday and providing a lot of copper for not only the economy, but the upcoming war effort. Next slide. Mining has also had a profound social and cultural impacts. It brought together people from various backgrounds, contributing to the cultural mosaic that defines Arizona today. The influx of miners and their families from all over the world led to the establishment of schools, churches, and businesses, laying the foundation for vibrant communities. Here you see miners from countries like Mexico, Serbia, Montenegro, and Cornwall, England, and more. Next slide. Mining is vastly different today than in the past due to a profound focus on people, health, and safety, communications, and improved environmental stewardship. Mining companies today strive for continuous improvement. Next slide. Overall, the mining history in Arizona is a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. It underscores the state's pivotal role in supplying essential minerals that fueled America's industrialization, while also shaping the unique character and heritage of the region. That said, understanding the history is essential for appreciating the economic and cultural development in Arizona and addressing ongoing environmental and social change. Mining sustainability is all about maintaining our social license to operate, which is something modern day mining companies take very seriously. Next slide. A clean energy transition, innovation, and quality of life will depend on our ability to mine. The amount of minerals we'll need to extract to address demand for emerging technologies and green energy future is increasing dramatically. The U.S. is import dependent for several critical minerals, and China and Russia, who have secured a large percentage of the world's reserves, have made access to minerals for strategic purposes a challenge. Next slide. Here you see aggregate, sand and gravel used for construction projects, which include roads and highways, your homes, and commercial development. Aggregates such as sand and gravel, the demand is an indicator of economic health. You also have Arizona being the third in the nation for production of aggregate, which is really saying a lot about the growth in Arizona. And to put things into perspective, it takes 38,000 tons of aggregate to build 1 lane mile of interstate highway. Next slide. Mining is a major contributor to the Arizona economy. Whether you're talking about the aggregate industry or hard rock metal mining, the industry provides thousands of jobs, both directly and indirectly, and supports a wide range of ancillary businesses. The revenue generated from mining activities significantly contributes to state and local economies through taxes, royalties, and investments in infrastructure. It is important to note that Arizona is the second largest producer of non-fuel minerals. We just lost first place prominence last year. We are second to Texas, and we have known deposits yet to be developed. This is according to ASU's W.P. Carey School. Next slide. Arizona boasts a well-developed infrastructure and companies headquartered in the state that support innovation, research, and emerging technologies for mining operations. Additionally, the state has a network of roads, railways, and ports of entries that facilitate the transportation of minerals and mining equipment. The availability of power and water resources have to be addressed, and they are through significant investments and conservation measures by the mines. And just so you know, and this picture is testament to the historic investments that the mines made in transportation, infrastructure, and as I mentioned, even power infrastructure and utility. Next slide. Arizona has been at the forefront of technological advancements in mining, and the state's mining companies have adopted innovative techniques and technologies to improve extraction efficiency, safety, and environmental sustainability. This includes the use of advanced machinery, automation, AI, and advanced research for environmentally friendly mining practices. Next slide. The presence of the University of Arizona's School of Mining and Mineral Resources provide an unprecedented cross-curricular approach to workforce development and is a leading research institution globally. University of Arizona has a strong focus on mining engineering and geologic sciences and plays an important role in advancing mining technology and provides the industry with skilled professionals. These institutions also conduct cutting-edge research and collaborate with the mining industry to address key challenges and improve mining practices. Next slide. Arizona has a regulatory framework that supports mining while ensuring environmental protections, safety for our employees, and sustainable practices. The agencies at the state and local level work closely with mining companies to balance economic growth with stewardship, making it an attractive location for business. In fact, this is one of the many factors considered in why Arizona is a top 10 jurisdiction for mining investment in the world. Here you see some of the state agencies we interface with. That doesn't include the federal and local. Next slide. In summary, Arizona's critical role in the mining industry is a result of its rich mineral endowment, geologic diversity, historic significance, economic impacts, technological advancements, robust infrastructure, strong educational institutions, pardon me, and a supportive regulatory environment. These factors collectively will ensure that Arizona remains a pivotal state in the mining sector, both nationally and globally. Thank you. Here's my information. If anyone has any questions or we can be a resource, by all means, give me a call or send me an email. Be happy to oblige. Do note that I operate two separate trade associations. One has to do with the rock products industry, which includes cement, aggregates, ready-mix concrete, asphalt, and the Arizona Mining Association represents hard rock mining, including copper, silver, and gold.
Thank you, Steve, for your presentation. I think that's very helpful for our audience to have heard, and it's a really good setup into the panel discussion we're going into, as a lot of our questions will kind of go more in depth about the information you presented. Okay, so now it's time for our panel discussion. Just to note, unfortunately, Resolution Copper was not able to join us this morning, but we do have a really good panel set up. And so to get us started, what I'll do is ask each panelist to give us a quick introduction. So let's start with Stuart.
Great. Okay, thanks, Ashley. I'm Stuart McDonald. I'm president and CEO of Taseko Mines. We're a copper mining company. We're building a multi-asset copper producer that's focused on North American mines. We operate one large copper mine currently in Western Canada, and we're also currently constructing our second mine in Florence, Arizona. So yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to be on the panel today.
All right, Adam.
Good morning or good afternoon to the folks who are a little bit further east of us. Adam Hawkins, Global External. I've been in the mining industry nearly 20 years now. I actually started my career in public policy on the Hill, got assigned to natural resources, which I thought was punishment for war crimes in a previous life at first, but really came to love this business. Spent 7 years inside of a company called Rio Tinto, working on projects pretty much on every continent except for Antarctica, but primarily focused on Resolution Copper here in Arizona. I'm actually a fifth generation Arizona native. So this is where the wagon broke down and future generations have been too stupid to fix it. So we just decided to stay. We're really fortunate that Arizona is endowed with a great mineral estate. And in addition to the consulting work that I do, I also have actually staked my own mining claim. So I know the process from the earliest stage straight through development and closure.
And then we will go to Josh.
Josh Olmsted. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Americas for Freeport-McMoRan. So I'm responsible for our North and South America operations, as well as our downstream and our Climax Molybdenum Company. You know, we've got operations all throughout the state of Arizona, a couple in New Mexico, some primary molybdenum mines in Colorado, and a mine in Chile and Peru in South America. Been in the industry for 30 plus years. I always like to say, I guess I haven't been able to find a job that I can do because they keep moving me around to various places. So I continue to have a great opportunity to learn the business from the ground up. I started as a frontline supervisor and have had an opportunity to work at various fronts of the business. So it's been a real exciting career and great opportunity to learn the ins and outs of the business.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all again for joining us. So we'll get into question number one. There's an increasing demand for copper due to the rise of electric vehicles and solar energy applications. Can you discuss this growing demand and maybe how the steps your company has taken to meet the current and future demands of copper? And Josh, do you want to step in?
Yeah, I was going to say I'll jump in. You know, it's interesting. Copper for a long time has been described as Dr. Copper because it's really tied historically to overall global economic activity. And as you think about how that ebbs and flows over time, copper price, copper supply, copper demand tends to follow that. What's been interesting over the last little bit, to your point, with respect to decarbonization and electric vehicles, as well as cloud computing and all of the metals that are required for those types of things, has started to maybe drive a bit of a difference in that demand as we go forward. So, you know, a lot of the projections today are showing a huge increase in the demand for copper going forward. If you think about historically, 28% is somewhere around 28% global demand is tied to electrical. You've got housing and construction, you've got basic industries, and then now you start to layer in on top of that the electric, the EVs, the decarbonization, the renewable energies, and that demand in this transition time period, it's really starting to ramp up very dramatically, the demand side. And that's exciting for us from the industry perspective, in the sense that it's a great opportunity to, you know, really think about how can we continue to grow our business, to your second question. And you know, one of the things about the industry, copper is where it is. It's not like a lot of other industries where you can, you know, set up and build a factory near an urban area. You find it where it is and you have to develop it. And that's a lot of times in challenging places, but a lot of times it's in great places like the state of Arizona. And so it's a great opportunity for us to think about the assets that we currently have, own and operate, and what kind of resources are there. So if you think about the growth opportunities we have in front of us, we look at it probably in twofold. One, we've been working over the last 18, 24 months on an innovative effort around leaching. And you know, as Steve alluded to in his opening comments, you know, mining in Arizona, and specifically within Freeport, has been around for a lot of years. We have a lot of material that we've moved historically over time that still has a lot of contained copper in it, that at one point in time we had deemed unrecoverable based on the technologies that were available at that point in time. And as technologies have advanced, as AI, cloud computing, data analytics have really matured and gotten better, it's allowed us to look differently at those resources, at those old historic stockpiles, as really another source. And so we've been very focused on driving work in that space to really create incremental growth. And we've been really successful over the last couple of years. At the end of the last year, we were on a run rate of roughly 200 million pounds a year, incremental above our baseline production, associated with that work. And if you think about that in the context of some of our existing operating mines, Sierrita, Baghdad, Chino in New Mexico, they're today producing roughly in that neighborhood of, call it 150 to 200 million pounds a year. So, you know, now that we're producing 200 million pounds a year from this innovative work, data analytics, that's a really near-term way to grow our production, and not necessarily have to have all of the associated work associated with, you know, whether that be removing and mining, blasting, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great opportunity for us in the near term. And we think there's much more opportunity there for that number to grow from 200 upwards towards 400, 800 million pounds a year as we continue to progress this work. Longer term, if from a growth perspective, we have some really neat opportunities in front of us. A couple of them in the state of Arizona. We've got Baghdad is a very long-standing, long-lived resource, and it's got a huge resource available to us. We're in the process of doing engineering around doing an expansion there that would double the size of the concentrator, the milling processes, and therefore obviously create additional copper production, generate additional employment opportunities, generate opportunities associated with the construction project. Longer term than that, we've got our Safford district in the Lone Star mine, and again, very similar to Baghdad, it's a huge resource. We've only been mining in Safford since 2007, roughly, but the resource there is huge. I like to say it's probably ultimately could be very similar to the Morenci district in terms of size and longevity. So we're right now in the process of kicking off some pre-feasibility work around the opportunity to build a milling facility there. To this point, we've been doing nothing but mining, leaching, hydrometallurgical type production, and then there's a huge opportunity for us to really build a mill and grow some incremental growth there. And then outside of the U.S., we also have an opportunity in South America at our El Abra operation to build a significant project there. The challenge with all of that is the capital associated with building those and the timeframes to permit, construct, and put into operation. But lots of exciting things on the horizon for us.
Maybe I can add something there and I reiterate, I think, what Josh said about copper. I mean, from my perspective, you know, it's an essential element of modern society. It's really, copper is really the metal of electricity. When you think about its you know, its required use in the power source, whether that's renewable energy, solar, wind, any power generation facility, all the way through the distribution network, wires, substations, transformers, all the way to the appliances in your home. All the way along that chain is copper. You know, it's the metal of electricity. So certainly electric vehicles, data centers, and AI get a lot of hype, a lot of attention in the media, and both as terms of new uses. But I think what's maybe a bit underappreciated as well on the demand side is the power grid, the infrastructure that's required to bring all of these new technologies to the market. And we're seeing across in British Columbia, certainly it's an issue, but I think across the world, these investments that are going to be happening in the power grid to upgrade and to modernize and to enable this kind of energy transition that's coming at us in the coming decades, the shift from fossil fuels to electricity. It's a growing, you know, it's a huge market, a huge opportunity for the industry, the mining industry, and for the state of Arizona too. I think the other piece of it that you know, demand gets a lot of attention, but I think the supply side is probably even a bigger concern. You know, when you look at the industry as a whole, we actually in the coming years have falling mine supply. So we have growing demand and declining global supply. You know, it's a real challenge for the industry to maintain production. We have declining ore grades at existing mines, and a lot of challenges globally for the industry in terms of bringing on new mine supply, whether it's long lead times for new projects, high capex requirements, high risk, challenging jurisdictions with political issues, social concerns. So it's a risky business to be bringing on new production, and there's not a lot of companies doing it, frankly, when you look around the industry. So it's again, it's, I guess, you know, our view is copper prices are going to be high, and for those people that are taking on these projects, I think the rewards are going to be there. And again, the state of Arizona is so well positioned for this in the future. In terms of our company and what we're doing, we have a strategy, as I said, to build you know, a North American based copper mining company. We have one operating mine that's been running for 20 years in British Columbia here. It's a Gibraltar copper mine. And we're in the process now of building a second mine, which would give us very meaningful production growth. We produce about 130 million pounds a year right now of copper at Gibraltar, and Florence, our new mine, will be producing about 85 million pounds when it starts operating late next year. So we're going through, you know, we're a smaller company, but we're going through a pretty rapid growth phase. And beyond Florence, we've got a portfolio of other projects as well that we're looking to develop in the medium term. You know, we have over almost 15 billion pounds of copper in reserves. But obviously, copper in the ground, it takes time to move these projects through permitting, through feasibility studies, and into operations. So it's really a business for people with a long-term view and people with some patience to work through the permitting and development phase. So yeah, but I like to think we're doing our part to meet the future demand for North American copper.
All right, thank you, Adam.
So I think my two colleagues here have covered this pretty well from the operator standpoint. A few things to note. Everyone likes to talk about electric vehicles and the greening of the power grid and all of this sort of infrastructure and its impact on especially copper demand, and it is profound. I don't want to throw any shade on that. The other portion here, and Stuart touched on this a little bit, is electricity comes into more houses, the demand for copper comes up. And there is no better, more cost-effective way to conduct electricity. And one of the bigger demands on the copper market right now is coming from a lot of folks who have generationally lived and died with dirt floors and no indoor plumbing coming into the developed world. And you're seeing this in a profound way in places like Nigeria and India. And when you look at the global supply of copper and just kind of where these resources are being reported at, and then you look at the near term opportunities we have for adding new and pretty profound sources of copper to the mix, and you look at where demand is going, it's not difficult to envision a pretty bright future for the red metal. One of my colleagues, a guy by the name of Chris Temple at the National Investor, he summed it up pretty well. We were at a conference pretty recently, and he said, there's about 10% or less of what they call hot money in the copper market right now, which means that that's money that's just gonna go wherever the popularity shift is. The rest of it are people who are making long-term bets on this. And when you put it into perspective, when you talk about the folks who are putting really, really heavy investments into the development of new resources, the smallest CapEx project I've ever worked on in my career was $250 million. And that was a project that almost didn't get financed because it was considered too small for the market to really be interested in. Most of the new projects coming online are measured in the billions. Every now and then you'll find a project that you're lucky enough to have a lower capital input. But for those who don't understand this industry, one of the things you have to appreciate is while these capital inputs are pretty profound, so is the time frame to be able to get to from resource identification to actually getting something into production. And it's a pretty high failure rate too. 1 in 1,000 of these exploration plays ever turns into a mine. And so when you're looking at the odds being that profoundly against you and the capital inputs going into it, we have a real challenge as an industry, even in the best of environments where we do have the support and indulgence of the governments and the communities that we work in. What I like to tell folks is that if the US government decided tomorrow that they were going to invoke the Defense Production Act and put like 1,000 square mile fence around the middle of Nevada, a state well known for its geology, and told our companies to get out there and just mine it, whatever you can, it would still take us a minimum of 5 years to be able to go from resource identification to actually being able to put something into production. So, and the key word you want to focus in on is minimum. So while I'm filled with optimism for the future of what it means to be a copper miner and what it means to be in the copper mining business, I'm also a little terrified with how well China has lapped us and our allies time and time over with the Belt and Road Initiative, basically just vacuuming up the world's resources. Copper is among them, but there's a lot of other things on that list that we've got to pay attention to. And I really hope that we can get to a point where our country can start to take this stuff seriously and start to prioritize that and understand that we aren't the problem, we're the solution to the problem.
All right, well, thank you. I think that is helpful. You know, we see there's the demand, and all of y'all are either have operations or revving up your operations in the state of Arizona. So the next question is, what are the biggest regulatory challenges your companies face, and how are you addressing them? And while you're answering that question, also let us know, for our audience, you have a lot of the business community on there. How can we be of help in your community?
You know, from our side, I would say that the biggest challenge we have is, and Adam alluded to it, is a bit in the sense of time to permit and the process of permitting. Part of the challenge with that is there's a bunch of redundancy there. And so you get a bunch of redundant reviews that just typically layers on more and more time and is somewhat inefficient. You know, one of the things from a company perspective, we're committed to doing the right thing. Steve alluded to it in some of his opening comments. The mining today is not the pick and shovels and what once was 100 years ago. You know, we're very, very conscious of our impacts and minimizing our impacts and operating our operations in a way that manages all of the impacts that we have. So it's not about trying to avoid those requirements. It's about how do we meet those needs and make that process more expedient, the permitting process, because again, as Adam alluded to, and I would say, he said a minimum 5 years. I'd say it's probably longer than that. But if you think about the permitting piece, then you've got all the engineering piece and all of that stuff. But the biggest challenge from a political and regulatory perspective, from my perspective, is really it's the time to permit and how do you work your way through those processes and understanding the impacts of that on the timeline to bring new production to bear.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I would say 5 years is definitely in our experience on the fast side. Our recent experience at Florence, it was essentially a 10-year process of permitting, and maybe even before that, to talk about the full development requirements timelines. At least, I mean, our deposit was drilled off and discovered in the 80s. Went through a period of dormancy in the 90s when copper prices dropped, but essentially came back in around 2010 as a new initiative. And yeah, we've been permitting it for 10 years, so we've been successful, which is great, but it's been a long road, and that's probably the biggest challenge, the regulatory challenge we would point to in the industry in terms of addressing the copper supply that's coming. We see duplication, as Josh mentioned. We see state agencies essentially permitting the same tasks and the same activities as the federal agencies are permitting. And timelines are, you know, it's a time-consuming process. I would say that though the ADEQ is probably, in our experience, one of the better experiences we've had anywhere in terms of setting timelines and sticking to those timelines. So that's definitely a positive. One of the other things that's helped us, I guess, is we have enjoyed good community support from local residents through that. We've been fortunate to have that support in the town of Florence and Pinal County. But you know, in terms of how the business community can help these things, I think, you know, we have to recognize that there are well-funded special interest groups out there in the US, in North America, that have access to money and can easily create problems for projects. They can create political pressure on elected officials and reasons to slow projects down, if that's litigation or regulatory issues. Those issues can create reputational damage for mining companies and can cause projects to stall out and not go forward. So I think to counter that, we need, you know, we would like to see some stronger and more vocal voices on the business side or on the pro-development side. You know, I'd like to think there's a silent majority out there that is supportive of economic development and supportive of projects, but we need those people to speak up and voice support for projects, get them moving forward, make these, you know, get elected officials wary of of what happens if you don't approve a project or you proactively stop them. So yeah, we need voices on both sides of the debate to get projects moving forward.
And I would just add to your point. I think the other thing that would be good is from my perspective, part of it is what we're doing today is awareness and understanding of the industry and the impacts of the industry and the importance of the industry. And I think that awareness in and of itself then facilitates exactly what Stuart's asking for, because then that allows everybody in the business community to know, the challenges we face, the opportunities that are in front of us, and the benefits that can be brought to bear, whether that's local in the communities where we're operating or on a state level.
So in my experience, and I think my colleagues touched on a lot of things, so I'll try to take this to a slightly different angle here. We run into a lot of folks that are under the impression that saying no to things means there won't be an environmental impact. And what they're doing in the process is they're just shifting us out of the regulatory game and out of any sort of input on human rights. And this is a really, really, it's a really, really sobering situation when, and I'm sure my colleagues have probably seen a few operations that, to put it lightly, are cringeworthy in both of those departments. Or at the very least, we've read about them or seen pictures of them. None of these things happen in the United States in modern day life. They just don't. So what it really comes down to, and what I would ask my colleagues here in the business community, is to understand that everything that you do, I don't care what business you're in, everything that you do starts with the periodic table. And everything on the periodic table either derives from things that are grown, they're agricultural products, or they're things that are mined. All right. There is a third category on the periodic table I call mined, M-I-N-D. That's the product of human ingenuity using building blocks from the first two categories. The second department of mind I call fairy tales, which is this belief that you can make modern day life possible without any of the building blocks from the first two categories or the human ingenuity department. Our policymakers really, really need to understand that, and they need to hear from you. The folks that know me know, like, I will talk to anybody who will give me an audience and an open mind. And sometimes I don't even need the second category to try and push the advocacy. We have a federal government right now at the executive level that's made in America a policy priority. And they've put a lot of energy on the manufacturing sector. Great. The problem is there's no manufacturing sector if there's no building blocks. So really, we need to help them understand and push more that Made in America starts with the stuff on the periodic table.
All right, thank you. So we have the regulatory landscape. So now let's talk, you're up and operational. What does your workforce look like? So the next question is, what skills are most in demand in the copper mining industry today? And how is the state of Arizona and different organizations like Steve's helping to make sure we have that workforce?
The workforce is just like any workforce, but and as everybody would expect, given just in general what we're seeing across the United States, from our perspective, our biggest challenge on the workforce front is what I would call skilled trades: electricians, mechanics, welders, those types of skill sets that are in high demand, not only in our industry, but if you look, all you got to do is look around Phoenix and you look at all of the construction projects associated with the chip factories, the growth that's happening in and around the valley, let alone more broadly in the U.S. And then you combine that with the historical challenge of trades and the lack of folks going into the trades. It's just created this high level of tension and high level of demand and a significant shortfall in skilled trades to support operations as well as new projects going forward. That's not new. It's been around for a while. We continue to work on that via, to your point, via whether that's through the Arizona Mining Association, whether that's through, we work in partnership with a lot of the community colleges, with several of the technical trade schools in and around the state. There was just recently an announcement out of Eastern Arizona College in Safford, near one of our operations, where we're working hand in hand with them, in addition to Caterpillar's local dealer Empire Machinery, on developing a diesel diagnostic kind of apprenticeship program. Internally, we have apprenticeship programs. We're also working with Education Arizona Forward. I'm probably messing that up, but it's an entity that's helping us really foster, identify, and we're providing scholarships and then job opportunities post completion of their technical trade types. And those are just small examples of some of the things that we're doing. It's one of those things that I would say there's not a silver bullet to address the challenge. We have to attack it on various fronts. So whether that's growing our own internally, working with local community colleges, working with local trade schools, working, just broadly across the state and educational opportunities, as well as, I think that not less important is our work with the communities and education and the local schools, whether that's junior highs or high schools, and really helping them understand the opportunities that exist in our industry and what that means for them, and how to maybe potentially direct them or get them interested in those types of careers. And so it really starts early on, and then trying to, once we work with the communities, work with the schools, help educate and let them see what's available, then we need to work with institutions to provide that training so that they can, if they have the interest, they can go get the training, and then they'll have a long road in front of them.
Yeah, similar comments from our perspective in Florence. We see, we need skilled trades, electricians, mechanics, equipment operators, and those things are in short supply. We need engineers and geologists and the more specialized mining professions as well. So it's there's lots of opportunity for young people to get into the industry. One of the things we're doing to increase awareness on our project in the very local community is supporting high school students with a scholarship program. We awarded 11 students scholarships last year. We run a very active community engagement process at Florence, where we host site tours. We've hosted hundreds of site tours in the last decade. And it's really, part of it is obviously showing people our project, but it's also the opportunity to highlight the career opportunities for young people. Mining is a very localized business, and we can provide opportunities for people that have grown up in that area and in Florence to stay in that area and have productive careers right in your hometown or in your home county. So that's what we're trying to focus on.
The other thing that I forgot to mention, sorry for jumping in again, but the other thing that I would say, if you think about today and you think about the future, and you tie in automation, data analytics, and all the instrumentation and sensors that are required to be maintained. I mentioned electricians, but instrumentation techs, process control techs, as the industry continues to mature in that space, it's going to require a different skill set than maybe we've had historically. So we need to be thinking more progressively about those future needs, so we're not in the same position we're in today with respect to mechanics and welders and equipment operators.
So I'd throw a few things in here first. Arizona Mining Association, as a full-time person, Whitney Lennon, whose job is to outreach to educational facilities, schools, just kind of help build awareness about careers in mining. We have a lot of the companies, they have folks who are tied to their operations. Stuart, everybody in Pinal County knows Sophie, and she's out there, she's in front of it. Josh, any company, any town around any of your operations has at least 2 or 3 people from Freeport that everyone know, that, you know, are out there talking to the schools, working with folks. That stuff's real important. I mean, the bottom line is if there's no miners, there's no mine. So, you know, of all the things that you have to have in place to be able to operate a facility, and we see this pretty prominently in the far reaches of places like Alaska, a state that's full of amazing deposits, but where you have workforce and infrastructure challenges that you really can't get past. So if you want to talk about one of the better things about Arizona is this is a pretty attractive place to live as far as mining camps go. And for those of us who have spent time in the fly-in, fly-outs, we'll call them, you know, these camps where you go in and you stay for, you know, a week or 14 days or whatever, and then, you know, go back out. This is a pretty attractive place to live. The other thing that we're doing, and we do better and better with each year, is it's one thing to be able to attract a workforce, but we have to keep them interested in working, and we got to keep them safe. And when you look at where our industry is today, we have a lower lost time injury rating than supermarkets do. We have a lower LTI rating than schools do. And a lot of people think about the work we do as miners as inherently unsafe. It's actually one of the safer places to work, because safety is a part of our DNA. It's a part of our culture. It's a part of every single day. We talk about it, and we take this stuff home with us. And Stuart, Josh, Steve, I'm sure you can all appreciate it. Our spouses are sick of the safety lessons, but it does keep us safe. The one of the more impactful things I ever heard, and this is on my first day of MSHA training, to work at a site, was the most important thing to come out of a mine as a miner.
Hey, well, I'm sad that we're running out of time, because we had a lot of good questions come in through our Q&A from the audience that we won't be able to get to today. So what I'll ask each of y'all to do is just kind of give your little 30-second wrap up comments for our audience. And if Stuart, if you don't mind, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah. No. Thanks. Good discussion. And yeah, we're a proud member of the mining community in Arizona. We're very excited about our project. We didn't get a chance to talk too much about the technology that we're bringing to bear. It's a relatively new mining method that we're bringing to copper at our project. Low impact and low cost mining. So yeah, we're just excited to get started, to get into commercial production late next year, and yeah, look forward to seeing you all again in the future.
All right, Josh.
No, just appreciate the opportunity. Great chance to talk about something that I'm passionate about, our industry, our business. You know, we're super proud to be a part of the Arizona community. You know, as both Adam and Stuart touched on, as well as Steve, Arizona is a great place to be a miner. There's lots of good things happening here, lots of great opportunities in front of us, both from a growth perspective, as well as from, you know, how do we really make things better? How do we help support all of the things that are going on a global basis and locally in terms of growth, making the world a better place, providing those base fundamentals so that the world can be a better place, whether that's locally or whether that's, as Adam touched on, whether that's in India or Africa. You know, copper and the products that we produce have an impact on everybody's quality of life, and that's really something that we're very, very proud of, and just happy to be a part of it and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Adam?
So throw 2 things in here, and first is that it all starts with this. I don't know if we can, can we? Yeah. I don't know if you all can see that or not, but that's me hitting a stake into the ground. It all starts with staking a mining claim and starting and taking the first step of mineral discovery. There's a lot about our industry that's pretty old school, goes back to plenty of the elders' time in Roman times, where, you know, a lot of the same techniques that they were using for extraction and processing, whether it's hydromet, heat met, all of that stuff, are some things are pretty time honored. But the stuff that's really exciting right now is the stuff where we're using new technology to be able to go after deposits that might not have been economic or recoverable before. We see that right now in Stuart's project in Florence. For those of you who aren't familiar with in situ mining, you'd hardly even know it was a mine. You'd look at it and you just think, you know, it was just kind of an open field with some features kind of sitting out there, but it's actually a pretty elegant way to get after copper. We've got a project out here right now in Arizona. It's a partnership between Rio Tinto and Arizona Sonoran Copper that's studying the use of a technology that'll basically take the smelter out of copper sulfite productions. And for those of you who aren't in the industry, this is an absolute game changer if we're able to do it. And it's unique because Arizona's geology is also pretty supportive of this process, and so is our climate. You have to have warm weather to be able to get this process to work. So I'm pretty happy about that. The other thing I'd leave folks is one of the greatest minds in geology is an old Arizona staple, a guy named Dave Lowell. And David Lowell would tell you that the best place to explore for new ore is in the shadows of an old head frame. And that means basically looking at places where you have known geology and starting to kind of branch out and look for companion pieces there. Arizona is blessed with a whole bunch of old spots and spots where we know that they have good mineralization and support the fundamentals of Arizona being able to meet the demand for the materials we need for generations to come.
All right. And Steve, we'll end with you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say, first of all, great job, panelists. This is why I love working for this industry. It's the people, it's the sophistication, and all of the things that our companies are doing in the communities to leave it better than they found it. I just want to say that if we can, because we didn't get to, I looked at the questions, they're excellent questions.
They were.
Adam and others were touching on the new technologies that are being deployed in the industry that will be game changers, to use his words, and I couldn't agree more. We do have a world-class mining school doing research and trying to help the industry to solve key challenges of the past. And, you know, it seems like a great time to be in mining. And obviously you've heard the demand is going up. It will continue on that trend, and we can do it better here with what all the resources that we have than we've seen in other places. So my feeling is if we continue to educate, and that's one of the things that we've always needed to do better is educate and communicate about opportunities in the industry, how we do things today versus, and I had an old mentor that said, in the absence of information, the mind creates its own. Well, there's a lot of that going on, because when, as we speak, there's a cohort of teachers down in Tucson learning about mining. And I met with them on Monday, and in just the first day, they said, I had no idea. Mining is so much different than I ever thought. And so if we can provide educational opportunities, if we can come and speak to your respective groups, please let us know. I do want to thank everybody who's on this call for your interest in mining, and anything we can do to be a resource, we're happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you to each of you for joining us today and sharing your expertise. This conversation was important. I think something y'all all reiterated is just bringing awareness to the mining industry. So I hope today's regional report did just that. And really, there's a lot more conversation to be had. And I know GPEC is on the forefront of mining, especially when we're out there marketing our region. So thank you again for everybody for joining us today. And I hope everybody has a great one. Thank you.